This is Support is Sexy, Episode 11, with Glow Media founder Cheryl Gentry. Welcome to the Support is Sexy podcast. I'm your host, Elayne Fluker, entrepreneur, author, producer, and founder of Chic Rebellion Media. 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, I talk to women entrepreneurs who share their journeys and the true stories of their wins and their lessons, and give you insight and inspiration to take your business and your life to the next level. Here we go. Hi, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of Support is Sexy. I'm so happy to have you here. And as you know, it just would not be the same without you. Today, I want to tell you about our guest, a friend of mine who I just love because she's so brilliant. Her name is Cheryl Gentry, and Cheryl is the founder of Glow Media, an event management company which she founded in 1998. She actually founded the company as a PR company, but then transitioned to focus more on a specialty in event management when she saw the needs of her clients change and the needs of the things that she wanted to do change. And she shares a funny story about that, so you have to listen out for that. One of the things, though, that Cheryl is doing now after being in the event management business for so many years and being very successful at it, I mean, she does events all around the world. Now she is launching a product, and I'm so excited about it, not only because it sounds like such a smart move because she knows about the business, and the product is specifically for event planners, and it's called OnSite Planner. So you'll check that out. In fact, the website is onsiteplanner.com, and it'll have more information about it. But Cheryl decided to launch this product and to raise money for it on Kickstarter. So in the interview, you'll find out the ins and outs of promoting your product on Kickstarter, raising money, what you need to know, the things that you need to be prepared for, some of the surprises that might come up. Also, Cheryl shares taking your brand global, which is something I think is so powerful for us to all consider as the world continues to change. She has managed over the past 18 or so years to take her brand global in such a special way. So be sure to listen out for that. The importance of enrolling people in your vision to accomplish your goals, which we're all about around here because support is sexy, as you know, and letting your mentors pick you, which she has yet another funny story about that, but full of great information. I know you'll get a lot of tips. Get ready to take notes. Without further ado, Ms. Cheryl Gentry. So Cheryl, thank you so much for joining us today on Support is Sexy.
Thank you, Elayne, for having me.
Yeah, so happy to have you. So the opening question that I ask everyone, when did you first fall in love with entrepreneurship?
You know what? I think entrepreneurship is just in my DNA. My grandmother, was the candy lady when I was growing up, and my grandfather on my father's side owned a funeral home. And you know what? I don't know if I necessarily thought of it as entrepreneurship. I just saw my family doing their thing on both sides, my mom's side and my dad's side. Mm-hmm. And my first business, it was me and my sister, who's my best friend. We were in high school and we sold lyrics to all of our girlfriends in high school. So, that was before lyric.com and Metro Lyrics and all that.
You were ahead of your time.
We were writing the rap lyrics down and selling them for $5 a song.
You guys were Rap Genius before Rap Genius.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Exactly. So that was our first business. That was actually really profitable at our school. So we were entrepreneurs at 15 in the 9th and 10th grade.
So it's always sort of been in your blood, or what you've seen as an example of being an entrepreneur.
It has been, absolutely. And my mom would always say, if you can't find someone to help you, do it yourself. And I think that's how we all grew up. My brother's an entrepreneur, my sister's an entrepreneur. And, people always say, how did your mom raise 3 children who are all entrepreneurs? Mm-hmm. And it really was that. I mean, I think that was the advice. We'd work on projects, but we'd always push through and work really hard to get it done.
That's amazing. I didn't know that. I knew you and your sister were entrepreneurs. I didn't know your brother was as well.
Yeah.
And where are you in the line? Are you oldest, middle?
I'm the middle child.
You are middle child. I love it. And you grew up in D.C., right?
Grew up in D.C., yeah.
So you gave us a little bit of a sense of what your childhood was like, but what was Cheryl like as a child?
You know what? I was always really sensitive. I mean, I feel like I definitely had, when you hear people talk about the middle child syndrome, I was sensitive. I mean, was popular in elementary school and high school, but I had that sensitive side at home because I felt like my brother would get everything because he was the oldest and he was the oldest grandchild on both sides of the family. And then my sister was the youngest. So I really did fall in that. But you know what? It taught me that I had to rely on other people, but then I also had to rely on myself and step away from being, and I'm still a little bit emotional, but, growing up, my sister would always say, oh my gosh, Cheryl's going to start crying.
You were the child in their feelings.
Exactly.
Yeah, I was the same way, very sensitive, but it makes you compassionate, I always say.
Right. And it really makes you understand who you are. Like, I don't want to settle for things. Like, I grew up saying, if this is what I want, this is how I'm going to process it. I want the best. I want people to tell the truth. So I had high expectations of everybody in my life. So if I knew I was going to do it or be emotional or passionate about it, I wanted the next person to feel the same way. So it really taught me how to interact with other people and how to communicate. I feel like I'm a very effective communicator.
Yes, excellent. Okay, so who were your greatest influences growing up?
It's always been my mom and my grandmother. They would always have real conversations with us. They never sugarcoated anything. My mom worked very hard. My grandmother, we had perfect attendance in elementary school.
Oh, wow.
It was just the family that pushed you through, and we had a big support in our family, on my mom's side, on my dad's side. We were always close and with family. But like I said, my mom taught me everything. She really had good conversations with me and my uncles, and just being impressed on how they dealt with relationships. But my mom was number one, and my grandmother, we would have word games, but it was always about being a smart game. We never played silly games.
Right.
We would play the
all
alphabet games. Exactly.
I love that. So let's go into your business. How would you say your upbringing brought you, the talents that you learned as you were growing up brought you toward your business, or how do you use them in your business today? Or just even your natural, the things that you naturally say, like you're a communicator, you're compassionate, sensitive. How do these things play into the business you have today?
Yeah, so currently Glow Media, we're an event management agency, and I was always planning all the Christmas parties and all the, events that we had in our house. And so I just love that and gravitated towards that more. And so it was easy for me now that, Glow Media is a global event agency. I've always done events. I've always been the event planner. I think when I was growing up, they weren't calling it the event planner. But it was something that I always gravitated towards. I'm very detail oriented.
Right.
I love deadlines. I love timelines. I love the tasks. Event planning is one of the top 10 most stressful jobs, according to Forbes magazine, but mainly because it's task heavy, it's deadline heavy, and a lot of people can't deal with that. We've had people to work for me and realize, what, I thought I wanted to be an event planner because they see the fun, glossy, here is the end product.
Right.
But leading up to that, there's a lot of accountability. And like I said, growing up as middle child, I always made sure that, how things need to be done. And here's the Christmas party and the invitations that need to go out. And so as simple as that is, I think people show up to events and think, oh, the event's here. But it really takes a lot to put it together. And I've just always wanted to do that. Even after college, I worked in human resources. But, back then, that's when the human resources department planned the company picnic and the Christmas party. So I would always spend a big part of my time and on the weekends being in the planning phase. And so I've had that with me since I was a little girl.
Now, you started Glow Media in 1998, right?
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, and it was, at first, was it a PR firm and event planning?
We focused solely on PR because I was in the music business and the fashion business and spent some time at Gerbeau and Boss. And within each of those areas that I was working, it was in promotions, publicity, and marketing. And so when I started Glow, some mentors, said, you need to start your own business. There were a couple of people that were calling saying, who did this fashion show? Who did this party? And I had 3 clients while I was still in-house at Boss. And my mentor said, you know what, it's time for you to leave. And I started Glow. But yeah, we focused a lot on publicity initially. We did some events, but our focus was publicity. And then I feel like, with the OnSite, a lot of this reality shows that was coming up, I feel like publicity was becoming more and more unrealistic, of clients calling saying, I want to be here and I want to see this. And I think I really wanted to transition more in events. When somebody called me and said, no offense to them, but a client called me and said, I'm going to be walking down Robinson in LA. Can you call TMZ?
Wow. And that's how it is now.
And I was like, not so much. Because they were never really an outlet. Now they're more respected and they break stories. But initially, it was just for gossip. It was showing up. We do a lot of events with celebrities and billionaires, and I protect my clients' privacy. Mm-hmm. And so when that one client called who wanted to kind of be more known and said she was going shopping, you called TMZ, I was like, not so fast. And then actually that same month, I think a good friend called and said, I want to introduce you to someone. And this young man, this gentleman was the president of the World Diversity Leadership Summit. And we planned his conference. And that's how it was a perfect timing. And we really segued into the conference planning and conference management.
Okay, and that was in 2001, right? You made that transition fully. That's wonderful. So one thing you mentioned I wanted to ask you about is mentor. Mm-hmm. How important has that mentor or mentors in general been to you during the course of your career or even with your business?
It has been really important. I think mentors serve as advisors. They are very real and frank with what you need to do, where you're going. My first job out of college, there was this woman that I was working with, and I wanted her to be my mentor so bad. And it just wasn't a connection. And I met with her one day, and she said, you know what? Your mentors pick you. You don't pick your mentors. And I was heartbroken because what she was saying is she didn't want to be my mentor.
That was her nice way. Of letting you down.
Exactly. And
I'm just not dating right now.
Exactly. And I was just kind of like, wow. So I guess I'm just going to have to sit back and wait for a mentor to pick me. And that's how I do feel starting Glow. The two mentors owned an advertising agency, and they just took me under their wing and they showed me everything about budget, about advertising, because I was working with Boss and Gerbeau, and they managed a big part of the advertising, but they sat down and said, where do you want to advertise? Who do you want to talk to? How does your event structure look? From the entire marketing side, they walked me through the entire aspect. And even though I was a director at that agency, at that firm, they still really sat down with me and showed me the ropes of everything. And so that's why I feel like really starting Glow, I have a wealth of knowledge, not just with, the PR and events, but really looking at the marketing umbrella and understanding the buy and the advertising and the TV ads and the in-arena ads. We ran ads at Madison Square Garden. So, and looking at those budgets and how the budgets would break down for events as well. We sponsored so many events, but looking at a budget, and you really have to go from a budget standpoint to understand what you want to do. So they in fact, she was the first one to contribute to the Kickstarter campaign. I know I'm jumping all over.
No, that's okay.
But she was my first mentor that I felt like was a true mentor.
Oh.
And as soon as she got the email about OnSite Planner, she was actually the first person that charged.
Contribute, to really show up.
Yep.
Isn't that to support? That's wonderful.
Absolutely.
I love it.
And I was like tearing up. I was like, oh my gosh, Janine.
Because you're sensitive.
Exactly. I was like, oh my God, I'm typing the email and I'm like, oh my gosh, what does this mean? Like, you helped me 20 years ago and now here we are 20 years later. May 1st was Glow Media's 20-year anniversary.
Oh, that's
and
so wonderful.
18-year anniversary, not 20 yet. 18-year anniversary.
Yeah.
And she was the first one. Yeah.
That's amazing. Isn't that amazing how things come full circle, too, if you stick with it?
Absolutely.
And that's a long time to be in business, especially considering things we've gone through with the market, the way the industry has changed and that kind of thing. How did you It's actually one of my questions. How did you sort of shift your business from being working on events in New York or quote unquote more locally to really being a global brand, which is what you are now, because you guys have done events in, I don't know, Copenhagen, right? And Japan
Copenhagen,
and
Hong Kong,
Hong Kong. And,
Rwanda in Africa, South Africa, Mauritius,
oh my
London.
goodness.
We do a lot of events. It's really been a referral network. We stand by the work that we do, and people have just been believed in us and believed in our capabilities of our events. And someone will pick up the phone and say, hire Glow, Cheryl and her team can do it. And of course, we have a website, but we haven't done a lot of advertising. It's really been a referral network. So you do have to stand beside your product and what you produce and do it proudly, even though sometimes referrals are the hardest relationships. But we've always stepped up. We are really good on our post reporting. Even for us to be an event agency, you wouldn't think that there's so many reports that are involved. But we do a lot of reports for our clients. We want them to know what we're working on. We're very accountable. We understand the deadlines. We understand people's budgets. We work with a lot of nonprofits and foundations. So it's really, though, going back to the budget management. My first year in business, I hired a bookkeeper. And everyone was like, well, why are you hiring a bookkeeper? You're so small already. And I believe in letting people do what they're good at.
Right.
And I needed to make sure my books were in order. Clients were transferring money to our accounts. I wanted to be accountable. I wanted to make sure I paid my staff. I paid all of our vendors. We're in business because we've always paid all of our vendors. And I know a lot of companies go out of business because, you get a big check and you think, hey, this is for me.
Right.
No, you got to pay your photographer and your caterer and your videographer and your florist and in some instances your speakers and your staff. So I think budget management and even learning that while I was in-house is really key.
That's amazing. So how did you, let's go back just a little bit. When you made that transition from working in-house to building your business or creating your business, you said you already had a few clients. Do you think that's something that's important for women to think about when they decide to start a business, to sort of have clients or whatever, have the business started first? Now people talk so much about quit your job and go start a business. But you sort of, even though you weren't necessarily seeking it out, it naturally happened for you. But was it important to have something before you made that transition?
I think so, definitely. You want to be able to have income. Now they talk about proving your business model. 18 years ago, that wasn't the language we were using then. But you do want to make sure you have customers. Right. You could be as passionate as you want about something and say, I'm going to do it. But you need to do your research, make sure people are going to buy your product. And we ended up having customers because we were doing events already when I was doing events in-house. Right. So that was just a proof of concept and a proof of model when people reached out and said, now we want to hire you. I was working until midnight. I was midnight in the office,
right,
working. But I made sure that there was income, that it was a viable business that I was going to start. And it really started off with the referral. My mentors referred me to DuPont Lycra. And Lycra was doing I think we did a 4-city tour, changing the concept of spandex. People used to always call it spandex. And so Lycra was on all the fabrics. So we ended up doing a fashion show in a couple of cities. But it was proof of concept that people were going to hire Glow. And then we got the next client. And then after the third client, I was like, okay, I have sleepless nights now. I need to quit and start this full time and be in it.
I love it. Now, how many people do you have in your business now or on your team?
So there are 8 at Glow, and we are growing with OnSite Planner, which is the tech piece for event planners. We just finished with the rounding out our development team, so it's about 8 on OnSite Planner.
That's amazing, Cheryl. I'm so proud of you.
Yeah, it's a lot.
So I have a quote from you that I see from you. Life is a series of events. right? That's a quote that you use. So tell us about an event that changed the life, quote unquote, life of your business. Was there a turning point where you were like, okay, I got this? Or maybe you may have felt that from the beginning.
Um, oh, there's been so many. Um, which one is it? I think it's, I don't know. I've worked on so many great events for different reasons. I always say life is a series of events, is because everything that's memorable happens through an event. Whether it's a marriage or a birth, and so I kind of extended that for my business because we are event planners. I think the turning point when I was just like, oh my gosh, this is amazing, is when I did an event for George Soros, and I met with his team and they vetted my contract, and then I thought it was going to come, the check was going to come from, his company.
Right.
Well, the deposit check actually came from Mr. Soros. And so,
and just so everyone knows, George Soros is a billionaire, an investor, very brilliant man.
Yes. So I think that's when I was like, wow. But even before then, I do feel like it was our first few clients. DuPont Lycra was one of our first clients, and they're a big corporation. The New Jersey Nets was one of our first clients. And then Vibe Magazine was doing a trade show called Vibe Style. And Keith Klinkskills, who was the publisher at the time at Vibe, is also a mentor. He's been a mentor. So he was one of Glow's first clients. And so there are a lot of people that have been in my life that have believed in what I've done and supported me, and not only just, saying I support you, but then hiring us as well. And so I've had a lot of mentors, but those first three clients really kind of started. I don't know when I started using life as a series of events, but that's my mantra. I live by that.
I love that. So tell us about now going from the other side of business, sort of a WTF moment, like when something either went wrong or a low point in your business, or something that you just had to overcome within the journey and decide to keep going.
Do you know what? I don't document the worst things all the time.
Yeah.
Because you really need to push past through and push, and not have that be too memorable. But I do remember one thing we were doing, and everything I do is always a learning lesson. I was doing an event for Shiseido, which is a beauty company, and the event was beautiful, but the owners and the C-suite, the senior management team, came in and they were like, everything looks great. And I remember like moving a plant, and I was all in it because I love events. And in the debrief, we always have debrief with our clients because we want to know what we did well, what worked, what didn't work.
Right.
And they said, you know what, you were too busy. Like, did you hire enough people? Because why were you moving the plant? And I was like, because I wanted it to be perfect.
Right.
But that really taught me something about client relations. That was the time, and that was early on, that when the owners and the founders and the presidents of these companies show up, then I, as an owner, need to make sure I am working with them, making sure their questions are answered, and then communicating that back to my team instead of me being in the hecticness of putting an event together. And so ever since then, I've always made it a big point that client relations is very important. It's just as important as getting the job and making sure it all gets done. But that face-to-face time on the day of the event is important as an integral part of your aspect of doing whatever you do. You really need to make sure your clients are satisfied with your capabilities, but then that you can talk to them and make them feel at ease and comfortable. Because if something's going wrong, you still need to put out the fire and make sure that they have the capabilities that you could do it.
Right. And so no more moving plants for you.
Exactly.
On the day of the event.
Exactly.
Now, what's the greatest lesson having a business has taught you about yourself as a woman?
You know what? I think it's that. That's another hard one. I think that in fact, I'm going to use someone the other day described me to someone else, and they said, she's serious, although I don't always think I'm serious. And they said she doesn't like repeating herself. And I actually don't, because I know I'm a good communicator. And so, I'm taking this from, my staff side, when I mention something or when we're discussing something, it's like I always say, write it down. You have to be able to absorb
Right.
what you're doing. And so it's taught me actually to be a little bit more patient. I think when I first started out, I wasn't patient at all. But I expect excellence. I mean, we're dealing with a level of clients that, expects it and demands it, but that should be anything you do. You shouldn't produce a, half-assed product. You shouldn't not follow up. My sister always says, you keep in touch with everybody and you follow up and you email, and, it's all about relationships. We've been in business 18 years because of our referral network and our friend network and our acquaintance network. And if somebody says, call somebody or email somebody, I'm on it. And you just have to have that. So I do realize that, I think I'm dependable. It's hard to say, of anything about yourself.
Right. I put you on the spot. I know.
Exactly.
So now let's talk about what you're going into next with OnSite Planner, the new product. Now, first of all, did you decide, is this the first product you're launching based on event planning?
It is.
And tell us what OnSite Planner is.
So OnSite Planner is a platform. It's an integrated, multifunctional platform that's really going to make event planners' lives easier. It's going to save them time. It's going to save them money. Last year, an app we were using crashed. And
this is during an event, right?
During an event. It was the day before the event, and we were uploading some data, some attendee data. And it crashed, and we were on the phone with help support, and somebody else in my office is doing something. And we were using about 5 different tools. And I'm like, why aren't these talking to each other? Like, we're uploading this and we're uploading that. And I was like, there has to be a way. So I am the type of person that I do the research. I mean, and I've been in this industry for a while. But as I was sitting there on that day, and it was the day before event, I said, you know what, let me start researching what's out there. We use a lot of different tools for event planners. But I started really looking at the market and looking at the industry in a different way. So I did a lot of research, trying to understand all of the tools, all of the apps, all the websites that exist, what their cost structures were, who's raising money, because I wanted to make sure, I always make sure that, is this a viable business? Mm-hmm. And started realizing that, people were raising, $22 million. And one company, actually one platform just sold last week in April, late April, for $1.6 billion.
Specifically for event planning?
Specifically for event planning.
Wow.
Because I didn't want to jump in, Glow is successful, but I didn't want to jump into something that I knew if it wasn't going to be a moneymaker. Right. And really be able to scale and grow. So I started doing all the research and looking at the competitive analysis and who would be considered our competitor. And once I started looking at that and focusing and doing the research more, I started then laying out the features of what we wanted. How is it going to work? What was some of the pain points that event planners go through? Being an event planner myself, I started looking at, I don't want this just to be an app for event planners. Like, this is almost like an app on steroids.
So it's more of a tool.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so we started looking at what all the features would look like and how they're similar to some of our competitors. And, again, my network, I started talking to a couple of people. I was having meetings with angel investors before I even had my prototype. Yeah. And so then really started saying, like, this is a viable market. And we had a developer, which I adored. He worked through my UI UX with me. And again, that was a referral. He used to get his hair cut at my sister's salon and came in and did the UI UX. And then I lost him, and I won't say who, but to a big celebrity who now he's building her, her app. And so we were just stalled a little bit. I thought we would have been to market sooner than now, but we were stalled a little bit. I just found a development team who are amazing, and I'll be making an announcement about who they are and how this all works. But again, it's the relationships and a network, and it's a big partnership that I'm really excited about.
That was great.
And so it's my super team of developers, but you'll be the first that I'll let you know what that is.
Yes, please let me know. And when I post this, I can put any updates in the show notes that'll tell people where to go to find out more information and that kind of thing.
Perfect.
So
Thank
you
you.
keep us posted. Let us know first.
Thank you.
Or at least
Thank
second.
Thank
So
you.
now, to raise money for OnSite Planner, you did a Kickstarter campaign.
Yes.
And what was that experience like? Setting it up and going through the process, and let us know.
Yep. So like I said, I'm a researcher. I do all the research before I do anything because I don't want to fail. You really have to look at the implications of what you're doing. And I talked to a couple of advisors during this whole trying to get into this tech space. I was accepted to Kaufman's Fast Track Tech Venture program, met a lot of advisors through that program. And I was talking to a couple of people, and they're like, Kickstarter is hard. And maybe this isn't for your business because you're B2B. Because a lot of the big successful campaigns at Kickstarter, raising over $500,000 are business to consumer. They're B2C layout. But I know I have a big network. I know a lot of people. I have 1,300 friends on Facebook alone that I actually know. So that might not seem like a lot, but I've interacted with all 1,300 of those people.
Right. These are people who are actually friends, associates, or something.
Exactly. And so Kickstarter was twofold. One, of course, to raise the money for the prototype. But the biggest point was to use this as a marketing tool to let everybody know what I'm doing. Because it's one thing to email everybody and say, oh, we're doing, an event app. And then people are like, oh, okay, I get it. Let's see when it comes out,
Right.
But then this Kickstarter was giving me an opportunity to send out several blasts, to inundate people's email, let them know there was a deadline. We did a 30-day campaign. According to Kickstarter, most successful campaigns are within that 30 days, even though you can do it for as long as you want. I decided to do the 30 days. I did the research. We had email templates. We had everything ready. We had all of our benchmarks. After the first week, this is what you should do. Halfway point, this is the email that goes out. Your updates that you should be giving people. And we were falling short of every benchmark. And I was freaking out inside, but I was still pushing forward. My team, we were developing artwork for the images to post, reminders, 15 days left.
Now the benchmark as far as how much money they said you should have raised by a certain point?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. So
and your goal was 27,000?
27,000,
Okay.
yeah. And so they said most successful campaigns have gotten to 15% of their goal after the first day. Most successful
Pressure.
campaigns would have reached halfway point at day 15. And so according to all the research I did, that's why I had all the emails ready to go and blast. And, day 15 would come by and I was like, okay, I'm not at the halfway point. But you know what? We stood firm and I continued to blast. And, you really have to have an advocate because last weekend, which was, I think, about 7 days before the campaign, I had $5,000. And my sister went on. And, I did read that a lot of people do wait until the last minute. We ended up having to really push and send out more solicitations. We were tagging people on Facebook. We were sending DMs.
You did some videos, which I think were very impactful.
Yes, thank you. We did videos. But what I think, and I need to really just write about this, because outside of everything that I've read on putting together a campaign, what I didn't see was, I think 7 days before I reached out to, and these girlfriends I talk to all the time anyway, but we sat down and said, one girlfriend said, you know what, you need to pull 5 to 10 of your girlfriends, and they just need to push it, share it, post it. Everybody was on the phone. You haven't given yet. Every day we were comparing lists. Has this person given? Has that person given? What about her? What about him? What about? And so we really had a strategy in place to 7 days before pick up the phone, tag, post. Why haven't you given? Wow. Texting.
So I love how you enrolled them into your support network.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's what I think really did push, because, they would get off the phone with someone and say, well, here was the excuse that he said he's not giving. But it was so funny, because one girlfriend, she told me about this one guy she talked to. She said it was an excuse. And then the next day he actually gave. Mm-hmm. And so I think by picking up the phone and having those conversations with people that I knew wanted to support, but we all live a busy life.
Right.
There were a few people that called and said, for whatever reason why they couldn't give. And I know they're supporters, and they shared and was pushing for me. So I know our wall was inundated, and we all have a lot of mutual friends. Some of us have, 200 mutual friends.
Right.
But we were blasting everybody's wall on Facebook. And that was really, I got a lot of emails through Kickstarter messaging that companies were saying, let's work together, and I can get you this and I could get you that, and you could get in front of 50,000 people. But I didn't want to go that route, because we were business to business.
Right.
And I realized that my community and my personal community would come around me before, someone that's, in Texas that has no idea what we do, why they should give to OnSite Planner. Who is Cheryl Gentry?
Right.
The 1300 people on Facebook know me. They know that I've been in business doing events for 18 years. And this really is an extension of what I've done. It's just moving into the tech startup space.
Right. I love that. So it was about really that personal connection, and not being afraid to say, hey, I need support around this. This is what we're doing. And then enrolling other people in there in your task. Absolutely. To help you get it accomplished.
Absolutely.
So how much then did you end up raising? Tell everyone, did you reach your goal?
So we exceeded our goal, actually.
Yes.
And we're still collecting money, because I posted on Facebook on my wall everybody that gave. And I think it was about 145 people.
You're so good.
And I put everybody's name. So I created an image. I tagged everybody in it. And I think people started sharing that. And so then I started getting texts and emails like, is it too late? I still want to give.
You were like, no, it's not too late.
It's not too late. My name wasn't on the list. I thought I did it. Did I do it wrong? So we're actually still collecting money.
I love that.
But we exceeded our goal. We are, I think on Kickstarter, it shows about 29,000, but we actually had some additional investors come in for higher amounts. And so they contributed outside of Kickstarter, because we knew we were exceeding that. Mm-hmm. Kickstarter actually takes 5% of the money you raise. And so we wanted to make sure that any money we raised outside of that really goes to building the prototype.
That's amazing, Cheryl. So would you say from that experience, what are 3 tips that you would give, even though you've given us so many great examples within your story, but are there 3 tips or things you would tell people just about running a Kickstarter campaign?
You do have to do the research. There was one, and I'll share with you and I'll send it to you. There was one gentleman, his website, I really liked what he did, because he actually gave all of the Word documents on how you need to draft your emails, because we sent the emails out to about 3,000 people. But you really do want to have the analytics on the back end. I mean, I saw who opened our email. I saw who clicked the video. We had 500 views on Kickstarter of who looked at our video. And so that encourages you then. You really have to use the tools and the analytics, because that encouraged me. 7 days in, I had 300 people to look at the video, but I only had $5,000.
Right.
But then I would call those people and say, hey, did you have any questions? So we did look at the analytics. And so even with the email of the 3,000 people, I could see who clicked what link and what video they looked at, and then who forwarded it actually. And then so then that narrows down my 3,000 to, I think it was like 88 people that then became the core of the people that I looked at. So, you know, I know people are always thinking like, how do I use these analytics? How do I use these tools? But you really have to use it to be a smarter better business person. Right. Because saying that you have a product for everybody, or it just doesn't work. You have to really narrow down your target audience. 1,300 might seem low to some people when people are raising millions of dollars on Kickstarter. But because I had business to business, it needed to be my community and my network of who was going to support me. And out of that 1,300 and 3,000 emails, we had 145 people to get us to $27,000. And so that's successful to me, you know, but you really have to do the research, understand what the campaign is about, and then have your timeline and your deadline. I mean, everything is a timeline. Everything is a deadline. You have to make sure you look at your calendar, whether you reach your benchmarks or not, but then still pushing through.
Right.
Not giving up. You know, you have to, one of my other favorite quotes, and it's like, we thrive when we haven't done it all, but when you have more to do. And that's when you really have to say, look, I have more to do. I have to push through it and I have to do it, and solicit that support, because it's going to be your friends that say, wait a minute, he didn't give, let me call him. You know, you really have to do that. You know, you really have to do that. So I have a board of advisors. They all gave and supported me, but have people in your corner that support you. And even the ones that you think that aren't, still push through. Still push through and post. And like I said, we blasted everybody's wall several times. And thank you. You forwarded it to your network and amazing emails and text. And so thank you. And even the conversation we had even before the campaign ended, that was amazing, because I was like, I'm going to use support is sexy.
Yes, it is.
And with that video, I think, you know, people were forwarding that and everybody loved that. A bunch of my friends were calling me saying, support is sexy. I love that. I'm going to use that. So I actually think that forward, when I use that, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Really garnered a lot of
support
and push. Thank you.
I was like, what is Cheryl doing? Call me. What do we talk, like 8 o'clock in the morning?
Yeah.
Girl, nobody. Very few people. I'm like, well, I'll talk to you at 8 then, since you're so busy. Well, thank you for that. And tell us that quote one more time that you said, if you thrive.
When we thrive when we haven't done it all, but when we have more to do.
I love that. That's great. All right, so I know we have to wrap up. I have just a couple more questions for you. You've been spectacular, of course. So now, if you think over your life and career and you had a chance to thank only one person whose support was critical to you personally or professionally, who would that be and what would you say?
Ooh, it would be my mom without any question. She has always worked hard. It's it's about to be Mother's Day. But she has always not only worked hard for us, for her 3 kids, but worked hard in everything she's done. You know, my mom turned 75 this year, and I was at she did a poetry slam at Busboys and Poets on my last Monday. And she's taught me never to give up on your dreams. You know, there might have been a couple of naysayers that was like, what's Cheryl doing now? You know, now she's doing, never give up. You have to push. And she taught me that. But at the same time, we meditated, she studied every religion. We studied, Africa extensively growing up. She's been to Africa. So making sure we know who we are, but even from a global perspective, that the world is outside of DC, go out and travel and meet people and connect with people. She's just always been so holistic in her approach and in her advice. And, she told me that nothing is a coincidence. When there's a coincidence, that means you need to look deeper. And she's always been intuitive, follow your instincts, but work hard. I know sometimes people think it's either or. but you have to be able to use your instincts and use your intuition and then still push forward and push through. And she's taught me all of that. She told me about chakras when we were in high school, when nobody, all that's fine and sexy now, but we were going to the health food store. We were vegetarians, how to treat your body, how to eat right. And that all goes into being a healthy, mentally healthy, physically healthy, spiritual person. And she taught me that from when I was in high school, and I'm getting emotional.
Oh, I love that. So beautiful. And you're going to see her in a little bit, right?
Yes, we're leaving in a couple of hours.
Okay. Well, that's beautiful. So final question, how can we support you with either your website, product, social media? Tell everyone where to find you and what to look out for. And of course, I'll put all this in the notes at the end as well.
Perfect. So on Instagram and Twitter, we're Basking in the Glow. It's basking, letter N, the glow. And then our website, if you want to hire us for event management, Glow Media is glowmediany.com. It's glowmediany.com. And for our tech startup, OnSite Planner is onsiteplanner.com. OnSitePlanner.com. We are still accepting early adopters. So if you go to our splash page, you can sign up there. If you're an event planner, there's a survey that's still up that you could take a survey. We really want to make sure that we build a great product. So please visit both websites and see what we're doing.
Fantastic. And the last thing, Cheryl, a parting piece of advice for our audience from you.
Oh, my best advice, which I feel like I always have a few, is, life is short. And so you have to take care of yourself, but take care of your loved ones as well. And don't be afraid to try new things.
I love it. Thank you so much, Cheryl. You're fantastic.
Thank you, Elayne.
Yay! This is wonderful.
Thank you so much.
Okay, hold on one second.
All right. Thank you so much for listening to that episode of the Support is Sexy podcast. And I do hope that you got some inspiration from it. And the challenge is for you to do at least one thing. Take one thing from the episode, at least one thing. You can always do more, but at least one thing that will help you move one step closer to your dream. Whether that's launching a business, writing a book, whatever that thing is that you want to do, take something from this episode and move one step closer. And what I'll also ask of you, if you can tell me what you think about the episodes, what we've been doing, what you want to hear, what you like, what you experience while you're listening, go over to iTunes, leave us a review, and let me know what's going on. What are you thinking? What are you feeling about the show? What else can I do to be of service to you, which is what this is all about, to be of support to you. That's our buzzword, right? You can also go to my website, elaynefluker.com/podcast. So that's ELAYNEFLUKER.com/podcast. Hear more episodes there. Also have a bunch of great videos, tons of information. It's where I'm going to be spending a lot of time, and it's where I'd love to connect with you. So again, thank you so much for listening. I truly appreciate you and your support. And the most important thing I want you to remember is having it all does not mean doing it all alone. So now, go out there and create something sexy, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care.